What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another training vlog. So this is actually last week's push session, so the second session of the week. My layout for my training is still pretty much the same. However, this obviously being a new training block does bear some differences to the previous block that I finished up. So in this training block, what I've decided to do is segregate my lateral delts and my rear delts. So I don't do my full delt training on one single day anymore. I do my lateral delt and front delt training on my push day, which is this day that you're watching. And then I do my rear delt work on my posterior day, or my back and bicep day, essentially. Because I do consider the rear delts to obviously be quite involved in back movements, and it just made more sense to me rationally to put them on that day. So yeah, my new training block, I will go into depth and detail about it in a coming video, but in this video I just wanted to kind of touch on this session, how it went, what my mindset was going into it, being that it is the first week of a new training block. And I want to highlight something that I think is really important that a lot of people should consider when going into a new training block or training phase, so as to not shoot themselves in the foot when it comes to progressing through the block. And then also just kind of touch on, I suppose, a few of my thoughts throughout the training session. But what I wanted to really, I suppose, highlight is the importance of just leaving a little bit of fuel in the tank, so to speak, in that first week of your first, or your new training block, I should say. So when it comes to a new training block, I always try to leave a couple reps in reserve, like at most maybe 3 reps in reserve. You don't need to be any more conservative than that, but that kind of 1 to 3 reps from reserve, or 1 to 3 reps from failure, is kind of the Goldilocks zone for muscle growth. Obviously, the closer you get to failure, the more fatigue you're going to accumulate relative to the amount of stimulus you get. So even though you're going to get slightly more stimulus, which is going to overall translate or contribute to better muscle growth, provided you can recover from it, going closer to failure, going 1 rep from failure, or going 0 reps from failure, will definitely result in you building up more fatigue in that session. And then across the week, if you continue that training approach, I suppose, of going that close to failure, and then what will happen is you'll reach your ceiling or your peak of how much fatigue you can handle before you can no longer move forward, and before it masks your fitness and your performance and your training. And then you have to kind of take a step back and intentionally go quite conservative in your training for a week or so, sometimes even more than that. 1 to 2 weeks of hard deloading is sometimes necessary if you just push things to failure for a number of weeks on end. So going into the first week of a new training block, like if you're just starting a fresh training block, make sure you don't go all out. Make sure you leave some stuff on the table for next week, and that's going to really kind of potentiate and set you up for making forward movements and forward strides in your training performance and your progress. And you're going to not have to have as frequent deloads as you might if you take it closer to failure. So that's just a little bit of a consideration that I do advise everybody to kind of take on board and keep in mind when starting a new block. So as you can see here, I did my incline Smith press, then I moved on to a decline hammer strength press here. And both of the movements, I'm aiming to stop a couple reps shy of true failure. When I say true failure, I keep my technique really on point. So I mean, you could call it, I suppose, technical failure, I guess. But I just try and make sure that I leave a little bit of room there for movement and forward progress in the next week. And then, yeah, basically I did, I believe, 3 sets of incline Smith press, 3 sets of decline hammer strength press. And when I'm doing the Smith press, I'm just focusing on having like a shoulder width grip. So not super wide, but also not super narrow, just so it can really involve the pecs, especially the clavicular fibers. And I do try not flare my ribs or compress them, but I try to keep them relatively neutral. So I don't try to crunch my abs down too much and pull the rib cage down a lot. And I also don't try to flare it, because that will just reduce the amount of contribution that the clavicular fibers are making in the incline press. But then on the decline hammer strength press, what I am doing is I am trying to expand my rib cage a little bit and try to flare. So I'm breathing in, trying to open up that rib cage a bit just to change the angle that the load's being directed at the pecs by. And that just helps involve the sternocostal fibers a little bit more and a little bit less of the clavicular. So that's just the mid-lower pec as opposed to the upper pec. Because the incline presses, you're obviously trying to target the upper pec a little bit more. And the flat and decline, you're trying to target the mid-lower or the sternocostal fibers of the pec. And the way you do that is changing the angle at which your chest is oriented to the load, or to the pressing motion, I should say. So that's what I'm trying to do in those two movements. And then here with the fly, I'm just focusing on trying to get as big of a stretch as possible, and then as strong of a peak contraction as possible at the front. So on the way back, I'm allowing my elbows to really kind of bend and really sink into that stretch. And then when I come forward, I'm trying to force those elbow pits, the inside of my elbows, towards each other, extend or lock out the elbows at that peak contraction, which just allows me to shorten the fibers a little bit more, get the humerus to adduct further across the torso. And it just leads to a really nice peak contraction in the chest then. And it's one of those things, pec flies, you can get next to nothing out of them if you do them incorrectly, or you can get a heck load out of them if you do them correctly. And so I highly advise you to really focus on perfecting your technique on pec flies, because if you really perfect it, you'll find that even though you might be able to use, say, 61 on the resistance of the machine, if you drop it down to, say, like 47, you might find that you can get a better peak contraction, a better stretch, if you just slow the tempo down and really focus on quality of execution, and still get a couple reps shy of failure from doing so, as opposed to loading it up more, not necessarily feeling it as much in the pecs, and just going through the motions and hitting the reps, so to speak. So I always really try to get the most out of every exercise, and I did kind of say that a little bit in my most recent video, I believe, or second most recent video, when I was training chest at World Gym Underwood. But basically, you should be trying to make every exercise as challenging as possible within reason. Like, you don't want to be that guy in the gym that's trying to perfect technique on all ends to the point to which he never increases the weight on the machine or the weight on the bar, because that's just going to lead to you spinning your wheels and effectively not really moving forward at a reasonable rate. But you also don't want to be that guy that grunts and farts and sweats and throws the weight around. You want to be that kind of in that middle zone of like really prioritizing technique, but not letting it hamper the desire or the intent to move forward in your exercises. Like, you should definitely be focusing on getting better week to week, whether it be just slightly improving your technique at the same load, same number of reps, or trying to add an additional repetition while maintaining the same level of technical efficiency or technical proficiency, or adding a little bit of additional resistance and then matching all other metrics. You just have to progress one thing. You don't have to progress load, reps, and technique. Like, you can just progress technique 1 week, or add an additional rep 1 week, or add a little bit of load 1 week. And you don't have to progress all the other things. As long as you keep them constant, they don't move backwards, you can still consider that progress. So the load on the bar, the reps achieved per set don't have to increase in order for you to make progress. You can just simply improve your level of execution while matching all of those variables from the previous week when you did that session, or you can increase the load and then just try and match your technique and match your number of reps, or just try to do an extra rep, match the amount of load that you did the previous week, and match the level of technical proficiency. And then, after that pec fly, what I did is I moved on here to my only delt exercise for the day, or I should say only direct delt work for the day. Obviously the front delts and even the lateral delts a bit get hit in some of the pressing. But here I'm just doing some lateral head isolation work, 4 sets of 12 to 20, just to really get a little bit more volume in there on the delts. They're not a priority body part of mine, really, to be honest, but they are something that I do still want to kind of, I suppose, push more growth towards. And so I am going to keep the volume a little bit higher than just maintenance volume or something like that. On most of the body parts that I'm not trying to push for growth, I'm just keeping around maintenance volume at the moment, and especially in the first week of the new training block. And then what I'm doing for my priority body parts is starting at the minimum effective volume, and they're just titrating that up through the block until I find my maximum recoverable volume for those body parts. So essentially, this is my current training session for push, I suppose. Obviously, I do arms first in the week, then I do this session, then I do my posterior day, or my pull day, I should say, where I do my hamstrings predominantly. Then I also do a little bit of back work and some re-delt work. And then I have my rest day, and I go into my upper body and my lower body sessions. But this is my current push or chest and delt session, I should say. And I hope you enjoyed it, guys. If you did enjoy it, please don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. It really does help me out, and that way you can obviously see future content when it comes out. And be sure to hit the bell icon if you do subscribe, because if you don't hit the bell icon, there's a strong possibility that you won't even realize I uploaded a video. I am trying to stay consistent with uploading at least 3 videos a week, so with that said, definitely don't want to miss out on any footage. If you are enjoying these vlogs, find them informative or useful or helpful. And I just wanted to say thank you to the few people that reached out to me over the last week in the gym, who pulled me aside and said thanks for making these YouTube videos and to keep with it, because that's really it's really motivating. Like I'm obviously not a big YouTube channel, but it's nice to know that what I'm doing is appreciated and people are recognizing it out there. So yeah, if you do watch my YouTube videos and you do see me in the gym, don't be afraid to come say hi. I do look a bit grouchy sometimes, but it's just I get in the zone when I train. But if I'm resting between sets, feel free to come over and introduce yourself, say hello. I'm always happy to chat, just not when it's obviously training time. Between sets, totally fine. But with that said, guys, if you did enjoy the video, again, like the video, subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have any recommendations for future content too, please let me know in the comment section down below, because I really do struggle with video content ideas. I guess I have what's deemed commonly these days as creator's block, very similar to writer's block, I suppose, that writers experience. I have all these ideas, and I suppose a lot of what I know in my head I assume to be common knowledge, but it's actually not. So if you have any video ideas, anything that you'd like me to touch on, feel free to pop them in the comment section down below, or just say hello in the comment section. And I'll see you all in the next video, guys. Until then, peace out and stay strong, and don't lift like an idiot.